What's up everybody, Gen X Dividend Investor here. In this video I'll show you the impact of spending almost all my dividends rather than reinvesting them over the last 4.5 years. I'll then end things by showing you some data on why investing in good dividend stocks is more important than ever, so I encourage you to watch this whole thing. Okay, so this is a screenshot of my dividend portfolio in Fidelity that I took on Easter morning, April 20th, before heading out to my relative's house for brunch. This shows that my overall portfolio worth is $3.173 million spread across 3 accounts. My IRA is worth about $1.376 million, my taxable is at $1.595 million, and my wife's rollover retirement account that I manage is $202K. This screenshot also shows that my total returns since I moved to Fidelity on February 8th of 2021 until now are at 52%. If I switch things to annualized returns, it says that I've been averaging 10.5% per year for those 4+ years. Nice. Now let's compare my 52% total return to both the overall US stock market and to the S&P 500 using Seeking Alpha's reports. This shows us that the total US stock market, represented as VTI, has returned 34% in those 4+ years, and the S&P 500 has returned 44%, so I've managed to outperform both, which is great, though not what I'd expect will continue as my portfolio is fairly defensive. It's not built to outperform, so it's nice to see, but generally I'd expect to do better in down markets, and then do worse in up, and since markets tend to go up more than down, then I'd expect my portfolio to do the same. If I was trying to outperform the markets, then I'd drop my lower dividend CAGR stocks and my income ETFs and such, and go with higher CAGR growth stuff. Okay, now I'll quickly show you my tickers in Fidelity, along with my estimated annual dividend income, and then I'll show you how much I've gotten in dividend income since I moved to Fidelity, as well as what my portfolio would have been had I been reinvesting it all rather than spending most of it. So this is the first of 3 pages of tickers using Fidelity's dividend view. It lists all my tickers alphabetically, 1 row per brokerage account, and you can see the number of shares I own, the current value, blah blah blah, all the way over to the right where it lists its estimated annual income it pays out. And since I only hold Apple in 1 account, then there's only 1 row listed here, whereas I hold AbbVie in each of my accounts, so there's 3 rows of it. There are a bunch of reasons why my tickers are held where they are, but I won't go into all those reasons in this video. Anyway, after AbbVie I hold BTI, then Caterpillar, Colgate-Palmolive, Chevron, and DIVO, an income ETF. Moving on to page 2, we see I own Duke Energy, then EPD, which is a master limited partnership that I hold in my taxable, then Goldman Sachs, Home Depot, IDVO, which is an international income ETF, then JEPQ, another covered call income ETF, then J&J, Kimberly-Clark, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Altria. Then moving on to my final page of tickers, you see I hold Microsoft, Realty Income, Pepsi, Procter Gamble, Philip Morris, Starbucks, SCHD, Southern Company, Travelers Insurance, and ExxonMobil. In total, my portfolio adds up to $3.173 million worth of dividend tickers, and Fidelity estimates that my annual dividend income is $135,000 a year. Note that isn't my total return, it's just the dividend portion. Obviously, I could go into higher yield tickers and make more dividend income, but there's a cost to doing that. I've actually been thinking of making a change and selling one of my tickers, but I've not committed to doing that yet. But if I do, you'll hear about it in a video, or sooner if you're a Patreon aristocrat or king of mine. Anyway, this page of tickers has some interesting info on it that I thought would be good to dig into for a moment. Take a look at the Procter & Gamble rows, and notice it shows an E by the ticker, which means earnings are about to be reported. And then the D by the ticker means a dividend is hitting it. This also says that PG's ex-dividend date is tomorrow, April 21st. And what happens on the X date? Well, the ticker basically falls by the amount of the dividend, and this shows us that PG pays out $1.05-ish per share. You can also see that the last stock price that Fidelity lists for PG is $169.57-ish. But if you look at Google to see what PG closed out on Friday, you can see it was at $170.63. So basically the difference between PG's closing Google stock price and Fidelity's price on Sunday has to do with the dividend being taken out to account for its X date that will happen the next day. And that's why Google's $170 price minus $1.05-ish gets us to the Fidelity listed price of $169.5732. So I think it's just an informational adjustment to reflect what's going to happen, since the dividend cash is earmarked to transfer out of the company's accounts and into my account rather than be related to an after-hours market trading price. However, due to a known phenomenon called the ex-dividend date puzzle, it's likely that the actual market price drop when the market opens for PG will be, on average, less than its dividend amount. Thus, I anticipate that the actual opening price for PG on Monday morning might be slightly higher than the $169.57-ish figure currently displayed in Fidelity. I mean, it's probably going to happen due to historical tendency, but it's not something that is guaranteed to happen. Ultimately, the opening price gets materially impacted by supply and demand from sentiment, news, pre-market trading activity, etc. So while the ex-dividend date puzzle tends to happen and is really intriguing, I still would never try to play the dividend capture strategy to exploit that phenomenon. And for those that are unaware, someone who tries to use a dividend capture strategy buys shares of a stock just before its ex-dividend date, and then they typically sell the stock on the ex-dividend date or shortly thereafter. Basically, they're trying to collect the dividend and sell the stock for a quick small profit, exploiting the ex-dividend puzzle. For example, you buy a stock at $100, let's say the dividend is $2, then on the ex-dividend date, the stock might drop to $99 instead of $98 due to the ex-dividend date phenomenon. And note, I'm exaggerating what can happen to illustrate the point. So if things work out, then you get the $2 dividend and you lose $1 on the stock sale, netting a $1 quick profit. This mispricing, or market inefficiency, is the crack that the dividend capture strategy tries to exploit. It's not always going to work, and taxes and trading costs and whatever else can also negatively impact things, and bottom line, the price differences are small and short-lived and not guaranteed, so I personally wouldn't do it. Anyway, here's a quick overview graph of my portfolio value by ticker for those that are interested. So like right now, Realty Income is my largest position at 7% of my portfolio, and Altria is also right there. Then SCHD is 6.4%, and AbbVie is 5.1%, J&J is 4.8%, etc. Now, my longtime subscribers might remember a video I did 4.5 years ago called Huge Dividend News about my portfolio, when I talked about how my dividend income had grown more than my expenses after multiple decades of investing, and so I decided to turn off all my drips and start spending almost all of my dividends. By almost, I mean I currently reinvest about 20% of my ETF dividends back into themselves, but all my other dividends are transferred out of Fidelity and into my bank account. In fact, I configured my taxable account to automatically transfer all of the dividend cash it gets to go into my Chase checking account. But Fidelity won't let me set up the same for my retirement accounts, maybe because I'm not at official retirement age or something, which means I move my retirement dividends out manually and pay the 10% additional penalty for doing early withdrawals. Okay, so the next question is how much dividends I've spent since I stopped reinvesting them all 4+ years ago. Well, my spreadsheet tells me that I've gotten about 480 grand in divvies since then. And note, after I turned off my drips, I sold out of some of my tickers and moved the proceeds into new dividend ETFs. My spreadsheet shows me that those dividend ETFs have paid me about 48 grand in divvies, and I've reinvested about $6,400 of that back into themselves. So $480,000 I got minus $6,400 I reinvested means that I've spent about 474 grand of divvies in the last 4-point-something years. Now let's do a quick guesstimate of how my portfolio could have grown had I not been spending those divvies. I've created a tool called a Portfolio Growth Simulator, and I'll put in a starting value of 0K, a starting yield of 4%, a dividend CAGR of 6%, and an annual share price increase of 6%, which is in the ballpark of my portfolio. I'll then put in a monthly cash amount added to the portfolio of $9,000, which is roughly the amount of monthly dividend income over that time frame that I got. And what I see is that using those growth assumptions, then that divvy cash could have grown to about 560K as we hit the 5-year mark, along with could generate another 22K in divvies per year. So like instead of my portfolio being at 3.173 million now, I'd instead be at 3.73 million, and my portfolio could be yielding around 157 grand a year in income. That's just an estimate, mind you, but now you can see the cost I've incurred due to spending my divvies instead of reinvesting them. And as a quick exercise, let's look at spending versus reinvesting my divvies from where I am today. The top line is the row of how my dividend income could grow if I continue to spend all my divvies, but I still get dividend hikes. Like in the last 7 days, I've gotten 3 hikes, one from J&J for 4.8%, one from Travelers Insurance for 4.8%, and a small one from Southern Company at 2.8%. So if I was spending all my divvies, then I'd estimate that in 5 years my income could grow to 176 grand per year, or if I had been reinvesting my divvies, then I'd look at the bottom row, and it estimates that my income could have grown to 214K per year. Hopefully it's obvious how important reinvesting your dividends are. But now let's talk about what I've gained by spending most of my divvies these last few years, and the big positive is that they've allowed me to retire early. I've never been someone who generally loved their job, and for some jobs was constantly under intense stress, so being able to retire early from all that has been incredible. I'm happier than I've ever been, because getting the freedom of time, along with the lack of job stresses, combined with the finances to be able to do mostly what I want, has been transformative. Each morning I wake up and can't wait to get out of bed and enjoy the day doing whatever I want. These days I'm playing more multiplayer video games with my old friends, I'm watching more movies, I'm working out whenever I want, I'm spending more time with the family, and I'm super grateful that I don't have work crap to deal with. So no sitting in traffic, no annoying bosses or assignments, no stressful work presentations or timelines or office politics or anything like that. Now I can go on walks during the weekdays with my wife, I can snooze on the couch during the day, and I can spend more time on fun hobbies like social media. And all that is possible because I started investing about 3 decades ago and I kept with it, even during tough times. It's possible because I reinvested my dividends rather than spend them. Now I desperately want everyone out there to feel more financially secure, and that's one of my motivating factors to joining my channel. My hope is to influence others to invest intelligently over the rest of their lives, especially during times when the market kills your portfolio. I'm also trying to influence our kids to have a good investing mindset as well. We have a rule that they have to invest 50% of whatever money they get into their personal brokerage accounts. Like my son has a custodial account, which I officially own and manage until he's older, and a few days ago he got $20 for helping a neighbor out with some chores, so we took $10 of that and bought a partial share of a stock in his account. I plan for my kids to inherit my portfolio, so getting them to establish good investing practices while they're still young is important to me. And I think everyone's gotten some mentorship from those around them. Like I'm grateful that a coworker at my first job convinced me to start investing so long ago, and these days I consider that to be the best financial decision I ever made. And to have gotten to a point where my investments yield enough passive income to pay all my bills is mind-blowing to me. Like I've got a 30-year mortgage and it's awesome to see my divvies completely paid off every month. For example, my Altria dividend more than covers my mortgage payment for January, April, July, and October, i.e. the quarters it pays out. Altria pays me about $3,900 a quarter pre-tax, and post-tax it still covers my entire monthly mortgage payment, along with it leaves me some extra spending cash. Or my EPD payment effectively covers my mortgage in February, May, August, and November. It's an MLP in my taxable account, and it pays me about $2,600 a quarter, all of which is tax-free for multiple years to come. And then my other 26 tickers cover health insurance and groceries and gas and whatever else. Anyway, hopefully now you understand why I've been spending my divvies, even though there's been a cost to doing that. Moving on, now I'd like to show you some data that highlights why I think investing in good dividend stocks is more important than ever. So the median household income in the US is about $75,000 a year. Experts have a rule of thumb that says your housing costs should be no more than 30% of your gross income, and that includes rent, mortgage payments, HOA fees, and even utilities. So 30% of $75,000 is $22,500 divided by 12 to get the monthly, and that takes us to $1,875 per month. The average monthly utility costs are about $500, taking our housing allocation to be no more than $1,375 per month. Now, obviously those are just averages, and the amounts can swing dramatically by location and such, but let's just stick with these numbers for now. So think about the kind of house that a $1,375 budget can afford you. Let's reverse engineer it. If we estimate $275 per month of your $1,375 goes to taxes and insurance, leaving $1,100 a month for principal and interest. Using a mortgage calculator formula, $1,100 per month at a 7% interest over 30 years gets you about a $165,000 loan, and assuming a 10% down payment, that's a max home price of only $183,000 for a household in the USA living on a median income. But the median home prices these days in the USA is at $419,000 a year. We'd have to go back to the year 2000 to get to a time when houses were in the budget range of what households are making today. So what does all that inevitably lead to happening? Well, the average age of first-time homebuyers has been increasing due to needing to make more money. In fact, in 1991, the median age of first-time homebuyers was 28 years old. But in 2024, it's gone all the way up to 38 years old. So in about 33 years, the average age to buy a home has gone up by 10 years. That also means that these days a first-time homebuyer is 24 years away from the earliest age at which they could receive Social Security instead of being 34 years away from it. And that has a ton of implications to it. Like, people have delayed wealth building, generally speaking. I mean, home equity is a major source of long-term wealth in the US. Buying later means less time to build equity before retirement, potentially resulting in a weaker financial foundation. It also probably means that retiring with mortgage debt becomes more common. Like a 38-year-old taking out a 30-year mortgage might be 68 before it's paid off. And if you're waiting to buy, then that means you're probably renting longer, which also means missing out on the relative price stability of a mortgage, along with equity gains that often come with home ownership. Combine that with the fact that prices have generally outpaced wages, which can also eat into savings and investment potential. Now, that doesn't mean renting can't be a great way to grow wealth, as it can mean you can really amp up your investing. But generally speaking, I found building housing equity has helped me materially increase my net worth over the years. And home ownership often plays a key role in retirement security since you can sell a home or downsize later in life. But delayed home ownership could force people to work longer or downsize more aggressively. That also probably means reduced intergenerational wealth transferability. Less equity built up over a lifetime equals fewer assets to pass down, which can widen the wealth gap between generations. And then think of the macroeconomic implications as well. I mean, fewer younger buyers may lead to slower housing turnover, impacting housing demand and liquidity. Older homeowners may be less inclined to move, locking up housing inventory, and that can lead to shifts in consumer spending. Like when you own a home, you also spend money on furniture, appliances, renovations, stuff like that. Delays can mean less demand for related sectors, dampening economic activity. That will also mean an increased demand for rentals, which will probably drive to even higher rents and more housing insecurity. It can also mean more investor ownership of homes, which will probably exacerbate affordability issues. So what's my point in sharing all that? Well, if you can't buy a home earlier, then you've really got to make your money work somewhere. You need to be building wealth some other way, and that's where investing in good stocks comes in. If you start early and invest non-stupidly, then stocks can probably give you the growth you're missing by not owning physical real estate. And if you invest in quality dividend stocks, then you can start increasing your income potential, decreasing the amount of time to get into a place of your own. And unlike a house, your investments in the stock market aren't locked up. You can access them if life throws something unexpected your way. And even if you don't own a physical house, your stocks still allow you to be an owner in some of the best companies in the world. Ones that might be leaders in healthcare, energy, AI, whatever. So while home ownership used to be a pillar of the American dream, the truth is you can now create financial independence through good dividend stocks, and those can enable your housing dreams as well. You don't have to wait for a mortgage to build your financial freedom. Ultimately, you can do both. So start investing now, maybe in a Roth IRA, and prep yourself for home ownership down the road. Compound your money. Buy yourself financial flexibility, because whether or not you have a house yet, you still deserve to build wealth. You can do it. You can push through the hard times. Sacrifice where you can, invest where you can, and keep visualizing where you want to go and how your hard work will get you there. And with that, I want you to listen to this 50-second motivational clip.
I remember when I was doing Conan the Barbarian, I was crawling on the rocks. So after 10 takes, my elbows were bleeding and my knees were bleeding. And the director came to me and he said, Arnold, I'm so sorry that you have to go through this, but we need one more take. Can you handle one more take? And I said to him, I don't know what you're talking about. He says, I'm totally fine. He says, but you're bleeding. I said, because I don't feel it, because I can visualize what the scene will look like in a film. I was visualizing crawling up behind Thulsa Doom and then rising up behind him, whack, cutting his head off. And so I had this in my mind. And so this is why it didn't matter if I had to do another 50 takes or 100 takes. I saw that vision of the perfect scene, and it was an important scene, and I would do it over and over again until we got it.
So keep your eyes on the prize and keep investing, even when the markets and the world get scary. And if you're still watching, then please do me a monstrous favor and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and click that bell notification. Now I'd like to shout out my newest Patreon aristocrats, so thank yous go out to Heather B, who just joined up. I'd also like to call out Kren10, who also joined up. Thanks, folks. Moving on, now I'd like to shout out 10 subscribers who've left nice comments on my videos over the years. So thank yous go out to J Vasquez 15, Andrew G5416, Dividend Flywheel, Murica Stuff, Equestilo, Rick B5275, who's left multiple nice comments, Doom Legion, Carvel Davis 8525, Daryl Keffer 3885, and last but not least, multiple nice ones from Landstick 4754, who's also been one of the OG folks who became a channel member of mine by clicking that join button. I'd also like to call out R-Sure2, who is my latest channel member to join up. Channel members also get to watch my videos before I release them publicly Saturday morning, and they get to vote on which thumbnails I use in my videos. So consider joining up, I'd appreciate it. Now I'd like to call out something I just got from a subscriber named Will Millett, who said he's a junior in college and is a finance student, and he started investing. He left a comment on my recent discounted cash flow video, and he said, quote, "You summed up in 20 minutes what I have learned all semester," end quote. My point in sharing his comment is to influence people to go and watch that DCF video, as I'm confident you will walk away having learned some new stuff, which can benefit you for decades to come. Finally, I'll recommend that you join my free Dividend Discord chat server, which has over 11,000 dividend investors on it from 85 countries around the world. Thanks for watching, stay positive, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor, and my videos are for entertainment and inspirational purposes only. Investing of any kind involves risk. I'm only sharing my opinions with no guarantee of gains or losses on investments.